Hi, welcome everyone to the final event of the ICIS Virtual Base Oils Conference. So I hope all of you have found this conference useful. Even though we are not physically present at this event and we couldn't see each other face to face, but nevertheless, we hope that you have enjoyed the program we lined up for you. And we have hope you have also forged a new relationships and bonded more closely with other market participants through the networking platform. So for today's panel discussion, we are honored to have with us two industry veterans who are experts in their own field. One of them is Eric Kim. He is a base oil supplier, and the other one is Anko Sachdev, a base oils buyer. So we will examine what the current disruption will mean for the future of base oils and its downstream sectors, and what implications this will have in the short, medium, and long term. So first of all, let me introduce the panelists. And so Eric Kim is based in Singapore, and he is the Vice President of New Business Development at SBC Petrochemical. Eric has worked in the base oils and lubricants industry for 20 years in Seoul, Houston, and Singapore. He has previously worked for SK Lubricants in various roles in base oils marketing strategies, making sales network, and developing new markets for 16 years. Eric holds an MBA from Rice University in the US and received a doctorate in business administration with Singapore Management University. And then our other panelist, Anko Sachdev. He is the founder and CEO of Ken Group India. Anko has a rich experience of over 2 decades in the white oils and specialty oils industry. Ken primarily is a producer of liquid paraffins and white oils for a wide range of industries, including pharmaceuticals, personal care, polymers, to name a few. And they are marketed under the brand Kenergy. Ken is also actively involved in base oils trading and distribution, which is handled by the group company Ken Roger. So for this session, the audience, they can start asking questions straight away on Slido. And so along the way, the panelists will answer them. Yep, so first of all, before we start the discussion, let us begin with a poll. So how difficult has it been for the industry as a whole and for businesses to adapt to the new normal? And yeah, from the results of the poll, so the majority of 63% of the respondents said that it's somewhat difficult, and then 25% said it's very difficult. So, which is, and another 15% saying there's no problem adapting at all, which I think to me is a bit surprising because I expected zero for that option, no problem adapting. Yeah, right. So so for today's discussion, so let us begin with Eric. So we will first off have a perspective from the supplier and see how this disruption has resulted from the COVID-19 has caused any disruption in the industry. So Eric, yeah.
Sure, thank you, Matthew. Well, from the production side, I think we can analyze the disruption in 2 parts. The first part is the first several months right after pandemic started to influence our lives in a global scale. So that should be March, April, May, and June. And during this period, some Asian countries, as you know, imposed strict restrictions on social distancing and even locked down their countries. This caused sudden sharp decrease of base oil demand because the finished lubricant producers technically couldn't operate their plant or try not to carry too much raw material inventories. So during this period, base oil supply was in long position, whereas the base oil producers are not ready to respond it properly in short term. And later, second part is from the end of June until today. In general, in the marketplace, base oil is in short position today. Probably the most frequently asked question by base oil customer this day is why base oil supply is not enough, or why base oil price keep increasing. Simply put, during the first part, which I said from March to end of June, base oil producers, which is actually the business sector of large energy product producing organization, experienced overall decrease of demand and consequent fall of business profit. It is true that base oil demand is robust today, and base oil producers are relatively in better shape than other petroleum products. However, base oil production is not as flexible as you simply imagine. And base oil production takes approximately, you should know this, less than 2% of total production from the refinery. It means that increasing base oil production, the refinery has to produce other products, which takes the majority of the production. This is very difficult when the demand for other energy product is not as much as it used to be. So in this vein, until the demand for overall petroleum product comes back to normal level, base oil production is likely to remain at limited production, way below their full production capacity. I think I can summarize the disruption from the base oil producers' perspective this way.
I see. Yeah. So yes, you are right, Eric. From what I have noticed, since China began the lockdown in February, and then a lot of these Chinese refineries, they start cutting production, and then, but China was the first country to recover from this lockdown, and then subsequently the other countries in Asia, they begin their own form of lockdowns, and the supply was getting a little bit shorter from the other countries like South Korea, Japan, and Southeast Asia as well.
That's so true. And Matthew, if I may briefly, the financial report of energy companies in Northeast Asia is out for review. And it is evident, I would say most of them are having probably the most difficult year in their case when it comes to their business profit. So that is mainly because their refining margin is negative or almost zero. So they might want to find all excuses to reduce their production at the moment. So consequently, it impacts our industry.
Yeah, that's right. So with the gas oil prices and also the other fuel products at the historical lows, and demand is really that so bad. So, but even though base oil's margins has recovered in the past few months, but it doesn't, because of the low demand, I think, even though refiners try to sell as much as they could initially, but I think it's difficult because of the low demand.
Indeed.
So, yeah, and then, so Anko, do you have any, what's your take on this? Any, from a buyer's view, do you see any tightness in the market? Is there any difficulties in securing cargoes?
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you, ICIS team, for having me here on this first virtual base oil conference. I think this is the COVID era, and instead of we being hanging around coffee tables and discussing this, we are here clamped in our rooms and trying to discuss the fate of our industry. And these are unprecedented times for sure. And of course, the topic for today, future of an industry, is somewhat ironic because predicting anything in this era is very, very difficult. And this is, we need to look at things with a perspective And the perspective here is that the virus is stuck. And in case the virus is stuck, what happened? And since I come from India, I'll give a bird's view of how the industry and in general how the things are here. And then, I'll come to your question, Matthew, discussing about the pricing and the supply factors affecting the base oil. It was early 2020, as you all know, once the COVID had started. So it was here in India, it was March 3rd week, I would say. And the government went very stringent and planned a full lockdown. And lockdown because we are 1.5 billion people and exposing the population to virus would be a havoc. So in terms of how it has affected us is as a human, we have all changed, in terms of our priorities. Survival was, we look back at ourselves 5 months back. We were concerned about what to touch, what not to touch. Everything was haywire, and we did not know how the virus permeates in the system. And there was all talk about immunity and surviving, and then gradually it changed to lifestyles and work from home. So it has been evolution ever since. And since no travel is happening, it is impacting our industry as well. We are the energy sector. And in case there is no travel, of course, whether it is intra-country or intercontinental or whatever it is going to impact the fuel consumption, which is a major driver for the base oil prices. And we've heard a lot of learned speakers over the last couple of days who have had their inferences based upon the research they've done. And of course, that has been backed by a lot of data. I do not have a lot of data to support and would not be using a lot of technical lingo as well. But still, my understanding of how the things moved about once the lockdown came up here in India, it was difficult running the businesses, of course, because manpower was scarce and there was a lot of intrastate migration that was happening for labor. Though ports were operational, but I would not say that they were fully operational. And there were a lot of supply chain issues. There were big lags being developed, and everything had went for a toss. In case all of you would agree, mid-April, negative crude numbers had already caused havoc in our industry, and no one knew how the future of base oil would be. And there in India, we were there with a lot of high inventories, of course, with unsurmountable losses staring. We would not have thought that the things would start changing, as Eric said. There have been two phases. One was till month of June, and post-June, there's a new era that is emerging now. So the trends do suggest that we were not expecting the demand to revive, and coupled by short supply, of course, and India primarily takes most of its supplies from Northeast Asia. So coupled by the run cuts or the operational cuts by the refineries for the reasons best explained by Eric, the raw material has been quite scarce. And of course it has now, as we just run a poll prior, and you probably have the results as well, that people are now adapting to the change. So in case they're finding COVID to be reasonably all right, so this is because we are resilient. We are trying to curb our, push our way through the crises as well. And it has been an opportunity of sorts as well in terms of the industry or businesses at once. We have had new suppliers now, new refiners. The product or the mix with which in the formulations we used to use different products, that is undergoing the change owing to lack of supply of certain grades. But fundamentally, till the time we are out of this COVID era, a strategic or a strong position or a strong indicator cannot be filled. These are short-term indicators in which there might be a demand that looks spiked up, and for factors other than demand as well, because of supply issues too. But what I see from here is, in short term, probably next couple of quarters, India and the world at large, as we are all awaiting the vaccine, are trying to immunize people in here, so that we move out with more freedom and there's less fear in the system, and the industry starts working with a thumbs up and not with closed hands, praying all the times. So the things are going to improve, but it'll take some time, probably a couple of more quarters. And at the same time, what I see from the refiner's point of view, uh, the companies have now gone risk averse, and they don't want to run on those traditionally number driven models. It is more about realizations and more stronger fundamental approach that all the companies are trying to run. So that is pushing the prices up as well. So answering your question, Matthew, I do see that supply is short in short term, and demand for the region Asia Pacific is going to be strong for next 2 quarters at least.
All right, yeah. So Angkor, it was a great glimpse into the India situation, yeah, from an insider. So yeah, I think a lot of many market players will be curious right now, because it's really difficult to understand why during this crisis the prices will just go up and up, especially in India. So that was really not expected at all, just 1 or 2 months before. So yeah, especially for group 2 light grades like the 60/70 neutral or 150 neutral. So prices have gone up so high that is even higher than the China prices right after China recovered in April and May. Yeah, so like to ask, what do you think has been causing this besides the tight supply, and is there a real fundamental improvement in demand out there? So why hasn't this COVID crisis affected the demand? Yeah, and why has it actually pushed it up even more? Yeah.
I see, Matthew, in case we fragment the whole time from the lockdown till now, it's fairly 5 to 6 months. And in the initial couple of months, I feel in the month of April and May, the imports into India for base oils had dropped considerably, number one. Number two, once the economy started unlocking in the month of June, there was resilient demand coming in because the inventory levels were quite low. Here in India, as we speak, I think last couple of months, the numbers in terms of the fuel consumption has been going up, and it is close to 90% as the last data that was being provided. Of course, other than this, I see India emerging as another key player in terms of the exports as well, because the exports are back on track in the last couple of months. And I was reading in today as well that the exports are, maybe close to the pre-COVID levels in the next couple of months. So there are strong indicators for demand for lighter grades, because these are the couple of grades which go into the process oil and the transformer oil industry, which have a higher consumption of lighter neutrals. And of course, there have been operational cuts and supply disruptions from the Asian counterparts, which has caused sort of a panic buying as well, which has spiked the prices to a level which should not have been. So normally there is a lag between a reasonable lag between the crude and the base oil. We see, I think, gasoline and base oil prices are hardly connected now. So the premium the ratios that we've been discussing and talking about, the fundamentals are out. So this is surprising to us as well. And as a buyer, per se, it becomes difficult to take the call because the numbers that are quoted are astronomical, and the fundamentals in terms of the crude or the base gasoline or even the demand in the industrial sectors, there's a little mismatch in here. I also see a lot of new players coming in, some traders and some service-oriented sector coming in to India, which is causing the demand to spike up, and they're accepting pricing at a higher level, thus driving the prices up.
Okay, yeah, understood. So with this tight supply, so Eric, how do you see, since you are familiar with the production with the South Korean refineries, do you think they will ramp up their supply in the next few months to try to meet the increasing demand?
I hope so. I hope so. But as far as I have heard from various sources, it is unlikely that the sudden increase of production would happen within several months. So in other words, it's likely that supply would remain short until the end of this year.
Yeah, that's pretty much the sense that I get when I talk to the market players as well. So and also on top of that, I think there's also less supply coming from the US to the Middle East and India recently partly because of the hurricane. And then it also seems that there's a shorter supply from the Middle East refineries as well. Yeah. So yeah, do you have any idea what has caused the shorter supply from Middle East? So is it some sort of related to the what is happening in Asia? So they are trying to cut their production because of poorer demand for the other kinds of fuel products.
I would not say it is particularly short from Middle East, but generally speaking, coincidentally, there has been technical difficulties reported by some base oil producers this year, and there were scheduled turnarounds and intentional cut of operation ratio. So all these combinations eventually affected the supply of base oils.
I see.
But
so yeah.
And coming back to your question, and as I explained earlier, because base oil is a joint product from the long value chain from the refinery, it is somewhat difficult to increase or decrease production, all of a sudden, and especially when we are still in the middle of a pandemic and we don't see really clear exit from the current situation. It is very likely that we maintain this supply and demand situation until the end of this year.
Okay, yeah, so it seems like maybe we can only see as far as the end of the year. So beyond that, yeah, just got to pray and hope that COVID will be gone soon and we can find a vaccine very soon. Yeah, so right now let us take a look at the results of the second poll. So the question for the poll is, are you optimistic for the future of the base oils lubricants industry post COVID-19? So I think it's really heartening to see that 90% of the respondents are somewhat or are very optimistic that of the base oils industry, and only 10% responded a no, that meaning that they are not optimistic. So, yeah, that's good to hear of this optimism. So, okay, and then yeah, so shifting to the Q&A, and we have some questions coming in now, and so the first one, some blenders have shifted production away from lubricants. So do you think they will come back to producing lubricants again? So what's your take on this, Anko or Eric?
Probably I'm the right person to answer this question, but as a base oil distributor, yes, I do hope so they come back.
Okay, so what exactly are they shifting to? Which products? Are they using it in as a substitute for fuel blending? That's what I'm hearing from some market players. Or are they maybe doing other kinds of downstream products like specialty oils? Is it really easy to switch from making lubricants to other kinds of products?
I think it depends really. Well, a couple of years ago, I visited one country in South America, and my first meeting was with the consultant in lubricant and base oil industry. And first question he asked me during the meeting was, "Hey Eric, do you know how many lubricant companies we have in this country?" And my answer was maybe 200. That was about how many we had in South Korea back then. And the answer was actually 500. Well, that includes blenders, importers, and anybody in base oil and lubricant industry. So coming back to this question, some shifted from lubricants to other products, and whether they would come back, it really depends how deep they were in this industry and how was their business portfolio in this industry may differ the answers.
Yeah, and Uncle, what do you think of that? Because since you are not in the lubricants business, you are in the specialty oils. Yeah.
Yes.
So how is it going there in your industry?
So in case we look at any industry for one, there are normally a couple of tiers at least. So in case I look at the lubricant industry also, so there would be at least 3 tiers of customers who would be manufacturing lubricants. And in those terms, of course, the tier 1 are the branded, highly premium, high value lubricants. And then we have those ones who are conscious of the quality, but are not very high on their branding. And of course, there's the third tier as well. So who are essentially just blenders with probably nothing at stake. So in all these 3 tiers, as you see, that the value addition in terms of the other factors in lubricants is not very high. So that's how switching from one type of application to another type of application, or one product to another product, might sound all right in case, of course, this is the COVID time in which people have been doing. They would call it innovation for sure, but they've been resorting to various matters in which they can leverage out of this situation. So it is possible, but it depends which tier is doing it. In case I'm not aware of any such instance here in India, in case you've heard it, in case it would not be possible in the tier 1 blender for sure. It can only be possible in the lower tiers of the industry.
Okay, yep, got it. And yeah, so I believe we have answered this question. And then another question is, so someone is asking that apart from China, which Asian countries do you think will emerge most strongly? Yeah, so yesterday I saw on the news, there's a report from ADB, the Asian Development Bank, and they have ranked, all the Asian economies and what they think, which country they think will recover the fastest and which is the worst. So out of all the countries, there's only one country with a positive growth that they projected, which is Vietnam. Yeah, and all the others show a negative. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure why they are so positive on Vietnam, or maybe it's due to the industry or other things. But yeah, then so what do you guys think? Which countries on your own, your personal thoughts, you think, your view, you think that will recover the fastest?
Well, if the question is about which country is really emerging when it comes to finished lubricant production and subsequent demand of base oil, Matthew, I agree with you. And also Indonesia and Malaysia are very strong. And Thailand is also very consistent. And well, Korea and Japan has been strong for years. So I think it's not just the one or two countries, but we are seeing some countries where have been leading the industry, and other countries are following very closely the leader school. So I would answer that question this way.
Yeah, and Uncle, what do you think? Which country do you favor most?
Yes, we need to look at two factors. One is, of course, the size of the economy for one, and number two is the micro and the macro economic factors governing those countries. Of course, as Eric said, and you also commented, Vietnam is one of the forerunners for sure. And in terms of other countries, I see, not because I come from India, but I still see India emerging quite strong. And there's a reason for that. I'd like to elaborate in here. Look, we are 6 months since this lockdown era has started. We have not unlocked down fully. We are clocking almost 100,000 cases on a day-on-day basis, though the fatality rate here in India is quite low, and we have almost less than 100,000 deaths in here, which is far lower than what has happened in the likes of US and Europe for that matter. But despite these adversities, the government here is trying to push for fiscal reforms and trying to support the industry, and even our Honorable Prime Minister has started promoting vocal for local. This is a small slogan which promotes the manufacturing sector per se. So in terms of the energy consumption, India is going to be strong. So despite so many adversities, we are still recovering. And as you rightly remarked, that India is buying base oil at prices higher than China. So that says it all. That means despite all the adversities, in case India is still emerging strong. And India is not a small economy. India is amongst the top 10 economies in the world. And of course, it is slated to be a major player in times to come. And in case of global businesses as well. So I would sincerely back Vietnam and India. Vietnam, of course, for the supply chain ease and the other transparencies in terms of the government norms is concerned. Vietnam is the favorite spot. And other than Vietnam, India seems to be very, very strong.
Yep, that's good to hear. So, and yeah, I agree with you. India, I think, should be one of the top picks, yeah, in terms of growth going forward. But one of the concerns that I hear, yeah, when I talk to market players is that the COVID cases, the new cases in India are at record highs, so 50,000 something every day. And what if the government decides to lock down? Yeah, if there's a second lockdown in India, just like what is happening in Jakarta, Indonesia. Yeah, they just started a new lockdown on Monday. Yeah, would that kind of cripple the economy, or has most people, they have adapted to the new normal, and yeah, they have ways of getting around it?
I think that's quite a valid question that you're asking in here, Matthew. But right at this juncture, as you say, there are 50,000 plus cases. The number is close to 100,000 now, Matthew. And the economy is still moving, recovering strong, and though it is a V-shaped recovery, of course. And on the other side, India is a big country. It has 29 states, and the cases are far spread. So a local lockdown is not possible, and a full lockdown is almost ruled out at this juncture. And India is awaiting the next mitigating factor, which is the immunization, of course, where there is a lot of effort and government measures being put to catalyze the process so that the economic engine of the country is not affected. So there is a very serious thought by the government in here to work, but to work with precaution. So I do not see any further lockdowns here. Though there can be isolated cases in which maybe a semi-lockdown, like a lockdown after 9 p.m. or 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. lockdown or weekend lockdown is imposed, but these would not affect the economic activity of the country. So it would not affect the base oil industry as well, for sure.
Yeah, so it's good to hear that the base oil industry wouldn't be affected. So let's hope that the demand will improve even further. Yeah. So and then okay, we shall go on to the next question. So there's someone asking about the ExxonMobil Singapore plant Group 2, whether it is shut right now. Okay, so far I didn't receive any news, or there's no official announcement from Exxon about whether their Group 2 is shut. But for their Group 1, it's reported in ICIS report that it was shut, I think earlier in June, but there's not really any confirmation on how long it will be shut. Yeah. And okay, and then the next question, as China recovers more quickly compared with other regions, will supply chains become more dependent on the country? So I don't really get the second part of the question. So, yeah, but for the first part, yes, China has recovered more quickly because it was under lockdown the earliest, and then after that before the other countries. So, but in terms of the base oils industry, the demand in China has I think is now stagnant. Yeah, it has reached a point whereby the import demand has reached a peak. Yeah, and the reason for that is that the local domestic supply has caught up, yeah, with imports, and is more competitive to get the local domestic base oils. Yeah, and so Eric, yeah, any idea what for the supply chain question? Yeah, what it is referring to?
Well, just like you said, I couldn't really get the second part of the question. But if I assume he is asking whether China is going to be more, change it to be localized rather than globalized, because they've been recovering faster and better than other countries. But if my understanding is right about this question, the answer should be not very likely, because our industry, as we may all agree, we have global value chain. We send base oil from Asia to US and US to Asia and to China. So it's all connected. So yeah, China may do it better because now they're in good shape, but changing it, in a short term and in totally new pace should be very challenging.
Yeah, okay. And then there's another question which is, I think Eric is the best person to answer, which is, do you expect a greater number of refinery shutdowns in the coming months?
No, I do not, and that would be a nightmare. And no, I don't really hear any unexpected, turnaround in coming months.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is the same. Most of it is planned. Yeah, they are scheduled maintenance, but maybe some have brought it forward, or they have extended the duration. Yeah, but I don't see any unexpected sudden shutdowns. Yeah, coming up.
I hope not.
Yeah, so if that really happens, then I think supply is really going to be get even shorter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the next question is the Tuas Loop Park still operating during these COVID times? The likes of ExxonMobil, etc., or have they had to temporarily close? For myself, I have not heard any sudden shutdowns right now, because Singapore has now we are in the phase 2 after the reopening, post lockdown. So I think most of the businesses have recovered and they are back to normal. So I don't really hear any impact from that. Yeah. So Eric, have you heard anything?
No, sorry, I have no idea about this question.
Okay, and then going on to the next, this is what we like to hear, which is the panelists are optimistic for the future of the industry. Yeah, I believe Amcor is one of the most optimistic person out there.
So, you want me to answer that, Matthew?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Of course, yeah, it is quite evident because, in case this has been once in a lifetime, I would say once in 2 or 3 generations that we are hit by a pandemic like this. And we are the ones who have been in the midst of this, and we are still in the midst of this. And despite that, the first question results show that almost 63% of the people they're finding it somewhat normal. So in case this is a human resilience, how people are adapting to the changes. We are not now. I see myself on the screen with you guys. There's no mask in here, so we don't move out without the mask. So the mask is part of the wardrobe now. So in case we have adapted that quickly to the changes, industry also has a human mind behind it. So they would do much the same. In case we can do it, so the industry will do much the same. And it has adapted very well. As Eric said, that there are a lot of operational cuts. So no one would have imagined such a big drop in prices and then such a big surge in prices. And the market is still accepting it. So this shows a huge amount of adaptability in the system. It is only that we had not explored that adaptability, and courtesy the virus, we have been able to explore the adaptability in our systems. And this is positive for sure, because because going forward, it is going to pave a different way forward, not only in terms of the base oil industry, in terms of our own lives as well. So, since economy and the personal lives are all integrated, I would say yes, we are very optimistic that things would be good in future as well.
Okay, so Eric, are you also as optimistic as Angkor?
Well, first of all, I think this is a very big question with a broad concept. Because yes, we are all in this industry. That's why we are having discussion today. But not everyone at the same location of the industry. For example, well, even if we narrow it down for the base oils, there's a group 1, group 2, and group 3, and even higher base oils. And there are distributor, producer. So I'm saying everybody should have a different future. But if I may overly simplify this question and speak it generally, yes, in near term, at least 3-5 years, I think it will be somewhat optimistic. As long as we overcome this pandemic as soon as we can.
Matthew, I'd like to chip in here. I have a comment here. Last year, we have all had big discussions about IMO 2020, and there was a Euro 6, Bharat 6 coming in here in India. So they were newer, and there was, I think, China norms also were upgraded in terms of the environmental compliance systems. So there was a lot of talk regarding the impact on the base oil in wake of these so-called new developments or disruptions, as you may call it. And of course, there's another talk that is happening regarding the EVs, which has been there for quite a while, and the shift from group 1 to 2 and 3, and now we're talking of a group 4, group 5 coming in. So it's an ever-evolving process, and we would not have imagined we would be talking of something different than IMO 2020 in 2020 itself. And there's hardly been a talk regarding IMO 2020. So this is unprecedented. And still we have all adapted on different levels, at different places, as different institutions and as different human beings. So I think we would adapt again as well. Thank you.
Very well said. Yeah, I agree with that. So I think we have come to the end of the session, and I'd like to thank the panelists, Angkor and Eric, for their participation and making this such an interesting discussion. Okay, and so we ended it's good that we ended the virtual conference with a positive note and some optimism of the industry. Yeah, and just to remind everyone, we will be holding a Middle East Virtual Base Oils Conference next month from the 12th to 14th. And look forward to seeing you all over there. And also, hopefully we can go back to the live Asia Base Oils Conference in Singapore by June next year. And I look forward to meeting all of you face to face again. Yep, so till we meet again, and stay safe, everyone. Okay, goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.